You know, the thin line between being a law-abiding gun owner and being a criminal is super thin in the United States, and it's only made worse by some of the dumb gun laws that are here in the States and can vary from state to state. And that's what we're going to talk about today: 7 dumb gun laws in America that shouldn't exist. If you're not into firearms, you may think that these laws are put on the books to protect the public, but what I hope to do is actually shed some light, give another perspective on why these laws are actually dumb and shouldn't be there in the first place, and really why they only affect law-abiding gun owners. Now, the first one I want to talk about is actually coming up on the ballot in 2024 in Colorado, and this is essentially going to tax gun owners for simply being gun owners. So when you go in and you purchase a pistol or ammo, you're actually going to pay a 9% increase on that stuff. Now you may be thinking, well, why do I have to pay extra? Well, they're going to use some of these funds to fund victims of any kind of mass shooting event. And so, they are charging gun owners, law-abiding gun owners at that, for these events that take place. So essentially what they're saying is they're saying, hey, you, the law-abiding gun owner, that's going to buy your gun, you're going to use it maybe as a concealed carry, maybe you're going to use it as a home defense, maybe you buy it and it sits in the safe and you don't ever do anything with it, maybe you're a competition shooter. Well, you're going to pay extra for the very few bad apples out there that actually take their guns and use them in a negative way. When you buy ammo for that gun, same thing. We're going to tax you because we believe that you're really the problem, those gun owners out there, and we're going to make sure to some extent that you actually pay for it. Now, this law is not even about stopping criminals from owning guns or, punishing criminals that use their guns in a negative way. This only punishes law-abiding gun owners because most criminals get their guns by illegal means, either through theft or straw purchases, something like that. So it literally only affects the gun owners out there that are already following the law. If you really wanted to do something, and by the way, I think some of these funds maybe go to mental health research and whatever. I think if you really wanted to do something to help the people in your state that are affected by some of these events, which are obviously tragic, then you would collectively get everybody in the state. You could do, I don't know, a 1-cent tax or something like that, that would really help a lot of these people and help some of the people that are absolutely mental in your state. Have you guys ever watched TikTok? There's one guy in particular that I can think that lives in Colorado that is an absolute schizo, and yet it just seems like he gets arrested and then he's walking around. Gets arrested, then he's walking around. I mean, absolutely crazy. The guy needs to be in an institution. But that seems like a prime example of somebody that could absolutely lose it. Those are the kind of people, especially ones with, public personas that people know about. Those are the people that need to be in some kind of institution. And if you want the funding for it, pull everybody together in Colorado or any state. And then you can really get some funding in order to get this stuff done. The next gun law that is absolutely erroneous is MicroStamping. Now, I believe California and New York are the only 2 states right now that have implemented this technology, or it's going to be implemented in the next couple of years. But essentially, that puts a fine microstamp on the firing pin of your gun. Now, I would assume they can only do these for new production guns because surely they're not going to tell the people of California and New York, hey, y'all have to bring your guns into us so we can microstamp them and we're going to keep them for X amount of time. So obviously this is going to only be applicable for new guns, which means any of the guns that are in existence right now, if they're used in a crime, you're not helping anybody out. But not only that, let's say I buy a new gun and it has micro-stamping technology. Let's say I go to the range and I shoot 1,000 rounds. Well, maybe somebody that is smart enough to pick up on this comes behind me, grabs some of my rounds, they commit a crime, they drop those rounds, they pick up their rounds, and then they drop my rounds on the ground with my identification. So now you're telling me that, you know, you're putting me at the scene of that crime because somebody else picked up my spent casings. So what you would have to do as a gun owner is make sure that you pick up every single spent casing you've ever shot that has this microstamping technology, and I guess we're all gonna become reloaders at that point. You know, it's just ridiculous, man. It's too easy for people to exploit it that want to take advantage of that. And hey, there's going to be criminals that use some of these guns that are microstamped. But again, criminals mostly get their guns through illicit means anyways. So you're not going to be able to tell, you know, who that gun belonged to anyways. And if you do track it down to the lawful gun owner, maybe their gun was stolen, then you're going to put them to blame. You know, if they don't, I don't know, they have an alibi, but you don't believe them. It just seems like it can be too easily manipulated, and I just don't like it. And again, it's just going to put gun owners in one more loop that we have to go through in order to have our firearms. The next dumb gun law I want to talk about is banning gun ranges. Now, there's only really two examples, two cities I could find where this has been done and actually succeeded and then overturned in some cases. And those two cities are Chicago and Blairstown, New Jersey. Now, the only reason I know about Blairstown, New Jersey is because I'm a big horror movie fan, and Friday the 13th, the original film, was actually filmed there. So it's actually on my bucket list of places that I want to go to and visit the original camp from Friday the 13th that is still a working camp. But since 1964, they have banned all commercial shooting ranges in that town. Now, I don't think it's necessarily a really big town, but you know, shooting ranges are kind of the pinnacle for a lot of people, especially when they live in cities, for them to practice and become better shots. You know, places like Chicago, good Lord. I mean, I guess the entire city is pretty much a shooting range, unfortunately, but having these enclosed spaces or even outdoor ones, which I think are way better, give people the opportunity to practice with their self-defense, their home defense, their concealed carry gun, their rifle, their shotgun, whatever, and become better and more responsible gun owners. So by local politicians running these bans on shooting ranges, you're literally saying, hey, you got to go elsewhere in order to train, or just stay untrained, and we think that's going to be the safest practice because I guess if you don't have somewhere to shoot, maybe you'll give up all your guns or something. I have no idea. I can't think of a logical reason that you would ever want to do this. If it has to do with noise, make sure they're all indoor ranges, I guess. But at the same time, this really seems like one of the dumbest laws that I've come across. By the way, I really want to thank Outdoor Life because they came up with a great article that lists a good majority of these. And of course, I'm adding my own spin to them and giving a little bit more information. But I do want to thank those guys, so I am going to leave a link to that article in the description. Now, the next dumb gun law I want to talk about, I'm actually going to relate to vehicles here really quick. And the reason I'm doing that, well, you'll see here in a minute. So why do we put mufflers on vehicles? Now, I know some of you that maybe are a little bit more in the know out of the car industry. I worked in the car industry, I get it. You're going to say, hey man, you know, catalytic converters, mufflers, the entire exhaust system leads back to the EPA, you know, DPF and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, okay, I understand. But at its basis, mufflers reduce sound. Why do we have noise ordinance in neighborhoods? You know, the reason that you shouldn't, wake up early in the morning and take your Harley and start rev bombing right out of the driveway. Well, it's just kind of rude to do that, and it's going to piss people off. But for some reason, we treat silencers like they're some kind of crazy device that is going to turn you into the next silent assassin, and a lot of that has to do with Hollywood and the way they've portrayed these things. One fun fact is that silencers actually were created by Hiram P. Maxim in 1909, and yes, he called them silencers as well, and he initially sold them for $3.95, which is $120 roughly in today's money. But these things are going to typically reduce your decibel rating, 40, 50 decibels maybe, sometimes a little bit more depending upon the round, the caliber, the can, the size, the length of the can, the baffles that are used, the materials that are used sometimes. There's a lot that actually goes into this. Now, it is kind of crazy how this device, it is so regulated in the United States, and this goes back to the 1934 National Firearms Act, which really focused on, short barrel rifles, short barrel shotguns, and, they included silencers into this whole thing. But in other countries, it's perfectly legal to actually own these. And so hopefully at some point, I hope that this entire thing gets thrown out, and the NFA as a whole actually gets thrown out, because these things are fantastic, man, and they will lead to a lot less permanent hearing loss, and that's the most important thing. So it's going to bring the sound down, to a respectable noise level, but even everyday things like an ambulance is 120 decibels. A motorcycle engine running is like 100 decibels. A car horn is 110 decibels. It's going to bring it down to about that level. So over time, could it still lead to hearing damage? Yes, but it will be a lot less likely than shooting this gun without it. And if you live next to a shooting range, especially an outdoor range, you may be super grateful if more people actually own these, and there'd probably be a lot less complaints if more gun owners actually had these. They bring the price down, they deregulate these things, and make them a lot more accessible. This is a fantastic tool that not only helps gun owners, but people that live in the vicinity of gun ranges as well. Now, the next one I want to talk about, even if you hate guns, even if everything I've said up to this point you have not listened to whatsoever, this one you got to consider. You have to know that this is so dumb. Ralphie, our favorite little kid at Christmas time, probably second favorite kid at Christmas time, I guess, really wanted that Red Ryder. Well, if he lived in New Jersey at the time, he would have had to have gotten a firearms identification card in order to buy that. Now, if you want to carry that BB gun, which I don't know why you'd want to, but if you did, you would have to apply for a permit in order to carry it. If you want to transport it in your vehicle, again, you have to have that. Otherwise, you are breaking the law in New Jersey. And guess what? Some of the new production BB guns that have built-in sound suppression, those are actually illegal to own in New Jersey as well. Now, an airsoft gun, similar to what I have right here, I actually reviewed this thing a couple years ago. It is like a true to form KP9. The weight is there. It's got, pretty fast fire rate. It's even got the, the fake mags right there. You can load them up with this thing right here. It's a super cool system. These are not as heavily regulated because airsoft guns actually have to have a painted orange tip. So the flash suppressor on this one is actually painted orange. But look, every single kid when I grew up and well before that, BB guns were like the thing that we wanted. That was like our first firearms experience, and it is a fantastic training tool. And for whatever reason, New Jersey has decided that they are going to restrict those. Now, I am a believer that if you walk into a 7-Eleven, you rob that store with a BB gun, you should be charged the same as somebody that uses a real gun, because the people behind the counter or patrons of the store didn't know that wasn't a real gun. But simply just to own one of these, again, it always comes back to just hurting law-abiding gun owners and people that maybe want to teach their kids on something like a BB gun as opposed to a real gun, to teach them the basics, and you still have to go through all of the hoops and loops and ask permission to buy that BB gun in the state of New Jersey. It is absolutely ridiculous. Now, here's another dumb gun law that we're going to explore actually more in a future video that I'm working on right now, and that is stand your ground. Now, stand your ground law says that any place that you have the right to legally be, if you are met with force, you can equally return that force with deadly force if your life depends on it, right? So you have no duty to retreat. Now, here's an important thing about stand your ground. This does not just give you the right to just, pull your gun out if somebody starts yelling at you in traffic and you feel slightly threatened to an extent. Now, if that same person were to get out of their vehicle, approach you with a baseball bat, well, that could apply there. Stand your ground. You're in your vehicle, especially. Hell, even if you're at the grocery store and somebody approaches you and you feel threatened, like your life is being threatened, or somebody around you, you have the right to use deadly force. So it's really important to understand those laws. Castle doctrine is actually a separate thing, which can tie in to stand your ground, but typically castle doctrine is either going to apply to your vehicle or to your home, maybe both. Every state kind of does things differently, in some of the states that you would imagine, New York and New Jersey and I don't know, there's like 13 of them. There's a castle doctrine, but that only applies to your home, and then some states it only applies to your vehicle and your home, and then I think, California uses some version of castle doctrine, which is actually kind of crazy. In my research. And again, I'll explore more of this stuff here in one of these upcoming videos. But then 27 states actually have stand your ground laws. And in those states, they have castle doctrines as well. So basically your home and then your vehicle. Your vehicle is an extension of your home, and anywhere you have the right to legally be. Now, I'm not a lawyer and I'm not sitting here giving you legal advice, but these laws are crucial for people in America, because if I have the right to be somewhere and somebody, approaches me and they are looking to do harm in my family, in states without stand your ground laws, you have to leave that to the police, which are where? On another call at the station. I have no clue. But you're expecting all of this to occur and for me to pick up the phone. It's kind of like that scene in National Security.
You're equipped with everything you'll need to do your job. Flashlight, pepper spray, and if things get really nasty, a coin holster full of quarters so you can call the police.
There are 400 million plus guns in this country, and 99% of law-abiding gun owners, we just want to live our lives. But we also have taken it upon ourselves, and we know that self-defense is at the cornerstone of who we are. And then, of course, that goes a lot further when we're talking about the Second Amendment, way further than anything talking about self-defense. But we have the right to do that, and I believe that stand your ground laws, where they're enacted, that is a fantastic thing, and where they are denied, those people are at a severe disadvantage when it comes to crime. And the last gun law that I want to talk about that is absolutely dumb has its roots that trace back to the 1994 to 2004 assault weapons ban. Now, this is another subject that I really want to dive into. There's a lot there, so I want to cover statistics and after effects, and there's a lot to that. So that's another one that I really want to explore here in the future. But for right now, this basically banned guns with certain features on them. If it had a detachable magazine and 2 or more features that they labeled as dangerous, then essentially those weapons were banned. So a lot of those guns made in that time period, you will see only have, one of the features, and they can't have 2 of the features, So there's a lot of crazy stuff that happened during that time period, none of which was actually beneficial to the American public, and just made some people actually a lot of money, especially if you had the pre-ban guns. But regardless, one thing that came out of that was magazine restrictions. And some states still continue to adopt that. As of right now, I believe it's still 13 states have some kind of magazine restriction. Now, in Rhode Island specifically, it's 15 rounds, and gun owners had until January 1st of 2023 to have those magazines modified or turn them in or destroy them. Otherwise, they would face up to 5 years in prison and a $5,000 fine. 10 rounds is fairly common as far as a restriction. Some states do 15, like Rhode Island. Other states do 20, like Virginia, right? And then some, cities actually have restrictions, whereas the state as a whole does not restrict them, very similar to Ohio. I believe in the town of Columbus, you can't have a magazine that's over 30 rounds, but everywhere else in the state, you're perfectly fine. The first reason this is stupid, because again, it only applies to law-abiding citizens, because only law-abiding citizens are going to take their property, take it somewhere so the magazine can be pinned and actually follow the law. Criminals, when they get their guns, they could care less whether that gun has 10, 20, 30, 40, how many ever rounds in it, and they sure as hell aren't going to take that magazine in and say, hey, by the way, I want to have this magazine pinned so I can be, in compliance with your new law. And, that's it. That's all you're going to get out of that, is the people that are already following the law continuing to follow the law. It's all about barriers. It's all about what you're willing to go through in order to be a gun owner, to buy a suppressor, to do a short barrel rifle, to buy a handgun in some states, to carry that handgun. If they can make it harder, maybe that'll deter more law-abiding people from actually getting guns. And I think that's what they try to do. But time and time again, Americans show that, hey, this is a right that we are not going to let go of. And that's why you see so much pushback from things just as simple as magazine restrictions, because we all know if this doesn't work, then they're going to go to the next thing. Then they're going to say, well, oh man, yeah, that Beretta or that Glock, man, you probably shouldn't have that. But they'll never start with pistols. They will always start with rifles, because rifles are statistically insignificant when they are used in crimes. Now you may say, well, this mass shooting event or this one, they use this kind of weapon, but I'm just talking statistically. Those crimes are heinous, but statistically, rifles are super insignificant. But because they are used as a scare tactic, let's say they were to successfully somehow take those guns away and get all of the 100 million plus guns, AR specific type of guns, out of the hands of Americans. Well, first of all, good luck with that. But second of all, they're going to realize, well, the American public will realize, oh, well, man, that didn't have any effect. I'm still hearing about these events going on. Oh, that's because most criminals actually use pistols. So now we got to go after those. That was the real issue. So that's kind of where you see this slippery slope. And yes, magazine restrictions, the 94 assault weapons ban, that bans certain features, all of these things are just absolutely ridiculous. And another part of this is, if you are trained on a gun, you can reload this gun very quickly. So whether it's 10, 15, 20, 30 rounds, it doesn't matter. You're going to reduce the rate for sure, but is it enough if public safety is your concern? Absolutely not. So yes, your magazine restrictions, your 94 gun ban or assault weapons ban that bans certain features, all of this stuff is just a way to hinder law-abiding gun owners. Because again, there's a lot of us out here, and there's a lot of us that own a lot of different types of guns. And the percentage of concealed carriers, the percentage of people that hold FFLs, the percentage of law-abiding gun owners out there. I don't know how many times I've said that statement in this video, but at this point you're probably tired of hearing it. But at the same time, we are not the problem, and the guns we possess are not the problem. If you really want to go after it, you'll go after the criminals and try to stop that pipeline, as opposed to restricting citizens in the United States that are perfectly within our legal rights. That's why you see so much pushback too, because it's always a slippery slope, and it will always lead to more restrictions in the future. There you go. There's my opinion, man. I'd love to hear yours. No matter if you agree or disagree, make sure you leave your opinion down in the comments below. If you like what I do, consider subscribing and turn your notifications on so you never miss a video from me, including some of the videos that I alluded to coming up here in the next month or two. If you want to support what I do and join the SHOT team, you can do that on Patreon, or join the channel right here on YouTube and gain access to some pretty cool perks. Big thanks to you guys. See you in the next one. And as always, hold them down.